Yeah, I joined CHS in 98 and in 2000 I completed. And I was the last batch. I was taught by Professor Panikkar. And when I came in 98, my BA was in economics, and then I was coming from a village. Then first time traveling in train, Delhi was intimidating. And I landed up as a third roommate in one of my friend's room, and the tutorial system, the classes, everything was quite heavy. So he told me, you can just walk into Professor Panikkar's room and you can ask him, he will help you. Oh, I didn't walk in, but then I realized over a period of time that every Malayali thought that Professor Panikkar's room was their second house in JNU. And they all were not only in CHS, SIS, SL, whoever studied here, they had something, every problem they could simply walk in. And I know personally that he helped them in very different ways, either academic, otherwise in getting a job, in so many different ways, they always helped him. Professor Panikkar was a constant presence in Delhi, in Malayali cultural associations in various ways. So as has been told earlier by professors, he had carried his Malayali identity, all throughout. His classes were very quiet. We could actually listen like music. He took long pauses, and we always enjoyed his classes. And in his engagement with culture, ideology, and all, I remember that word cultural taste. That is something that stuck. And when I was in Pondicherry, I was doing my postdoc. That's the time that I actually got to go and have a dinner with him. And then I realized that his taste was not just culture, but was also for food. He thoroughly enjoyed the Kerala food and everything about the Malayali life. And when you read his book, Against Lord and the State, it was something, you feel that it is something that stories about which he grew up. He is from the northern part of Thrissur, where the Malabar rebellion was quite badly affected. And that, born in 1936, he probably grew up hearing the stories of the rebellion as a one-sided story about, between rebellion that happened between the Muslims and the Hindus. And probably these questions led him to ask, was in his mind, it looks like it was in his mind, and he asked this question that it is not just about religious tension, but it had deep-rooted economic logic to it. And that probably his reflection on communalism and communal history and communal narrative that treats the social tension in terms of purely religious content also comes that communalism cannot be confronted without being a socialist. It was a rebellion from the poor Mappilas against the landowning Brahmins and the Nayars. So he was also telling through his writings that Muslims just not has to be seen in terms of their religious identities, but Muslims and Christians are also positioned within different economic arrangement. And those economic arrangements are more important, more significant than the religious positions which they are located. And in his course on ideologies that he offered, it was the first time that I came across on indigenous medicine. And that's the first time that I realized that history is not just about political history, and that there could be a history of medicine, there could be medical logics, the tensions that is played within colonialisms and other kinds of things could also be reflected in the domain of history. And for some reasons I continued to do my PhD on Ayurveda, on medical history, on P.S. Warrior, on which his article is actually, which we actually taught in the class. So I revisited the same files that he saw. And his course, his approach, his ways influenced me in very different ways. And of course, Kerala history had its own limitations like any other regions. And I would say that Kerala history after Professor Panikkar is entirely different. His working on Indulekha, his writings about Malabar Rebellion or about indigenous medicine has hugely influenced and has shaped an entire generation of historical scholarship in Kerala. I fondly remember his classes, everything, and I express my deep condolences to him. Thank you.